A partial verdict reached in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. A jury saying they've reached a decision on all but one charge after deliberating for just over 12 hours. The big unknown tonight is what that decision is. Combs faces 5 criminal counts. You see them right here. But it's that first charge at the top of racketeering conspiracy that they can't seem to agree on, at least not yet. Our team of legal experts standing by with what could be delaying the decision. It comes after weeks of intense and emotional testimony from star witnesses, including Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie. The prosecution arguing Combs used his influence and power to run a criminal enterprise, going into excruciating detail about those alleged freak-offs. Also pointing to evidence from raids at Combs' Miami and Los Angeles mansions, which included guns, ammo, and, of course, baby oil. Combs has denied all the charges, but tonight his fate still remains in the hands of these jurors as they are set to return tomorrow to continue deliberating on that final count. We have a lot to get to this evening. We want to start with Chloe Melas, who was in court. Chloe joins us now live. What did Combs do when they came back essentially so fast with a partial verdict?
Tom, it was a stunning moment, and I was actually in the courthouse watching Combs as he was reading the latest note from the jury, and his attorneys, in a very powerful scene, they huddled around him. It was almost ominous, and he put his head in his hands, even rubbing his eyes at one point, looking clearly dejected.
We've reached a verdict on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. Read the note from the jury that came just after 4 o'clock. But we cannot reach a verdict on count 1, they wrote, because some jurors have unpersuadable views. That means they've reached a unanimous decision on whether Sean Diddy Combs is guilty of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. But the jury of 8 men and 4 women is split on the most serious and complex charge, racketeering conspiracy. For that count, jurors must decide whether they believe Combs ran a criminal organization and committed underlying crimes like kidnapping and arson. Late today, the judge urging the jury to keep deliberating to try to reach a decision on that last count before revealing their verdict. As the jury's note came in, Combs' attorneys hugged and formed a circle around the music mogul, who put his head in his hands, at one point giving a thumbs up to his family. During the 7-week trial, prosecutors alleged that the music mogul ran a criminal enterprise and used power, violence, and fear to get what he wanted. Calling 34 witnesses, including 2 of Combs' former girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and another known only as Jane. Combs opting not to testify, his defense team calling no witnesses, telling the jury that the claims against Combs were badly exaggerated and that physical abuse and love of baby oil are not federal crimes. The jury will resume deliberations tomorrow morning.
All right, Chloe is back with us in front of the courthouse. And for legal analysis here tonight on Top Story, we have former federal prosecutor Kristen Feden and NBC News senior legal analyst, correspondent Laura Jarrett, good friends to Top Story. Chloe, I'm going to go back to you. Take us back into the courthouse. What else did you observe Diddy doing, especially when he left court as well?
Yeah, so as he was leaving, he actually turned around and looked at his family. His daughters were in there, some other of his children, and his mother, Janice, who has been in there every single day of the trial. And his mother asked about the verdicts, and Combs said they came back with 4 verdicts, and we're waiting on count 1. It'll be all right. I love you. He had a slight smile, Tom, but that usual optimism that you and I have talked about, that I've seen when I've been in the courtroom, it wasn't there. And this coming from a guy who yesterday was holding up the cover of those 2 books we talked about, The Power of Positive Thinking and The Happiness Advantage.
Yeah, it seems there's a vibe shift, but again, we don't know what the jury's decided. Kristen, I'm going to go to you now. Count 1 is racketeering. It's the most complicated one, the most punitive as well if he's convicted. Was that the right charge to bring against Diddy? Can we read anything in the jury's actions right now?
I think we can read a lot in the jury's actions. Do I think it was the right move by the prosecution? Absolutely, hands down. Why? Well, because with the RICO charge, what the prosecution can do is they can show from 2004 all the way up to 2024 that there was a pattern of power, exertion, control, all in the form of threats, physical violence, guns, all of that. They can show that pattern to the jury. Even if they don't get that as a conviction, the jury has now heard all of the acts of Sean Diddy Combs, and then they heard of all of those criminal acts, even if they only get convictions on those 4 standalone crimes, the 2 sex trafficking and the 2 transportation of prostitution crimes.
It allows them to tell the full story.
Yeah, I'm going to ask our great director, Brett Holy, if you can put up that full screen we had of all the charges, because I want to ask Laura about this. I mean, look, we can't read the jury's mind. We have no idea what they decided. But In your expertise, in your history covering the courts, what do you think this means? Can we read any tea leaves? They came back, I think, kind of fast. It was really a day and a little bit of deliberating, and they have unanimous decisions on 4 out of 5 of these. What do you think they're thinking?
Yeah, my guess is whatever the verdict is, it's the same on count 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? I don't think they're probably splitting the baby on that, although they could, because they are different survivors that are involved there, right? We have Cassie, you have Jane, so that's what the counts correlate to. Maybe they think something happened to Cassie that's different from Jane. There was different evidence. They provided different testimony, so I don't want to make it seem like this is a fully baked thing. We have no idea what's going on in that jury room, Tom, but as Kristen said, I think the RICO thing allows them to bring in conduct that they wouldn't be able to bring in otherwise, right? Conduct stretching back to 2004 would be past the statute of limitations. But because they've done RICO, they get to use all of that to tell a much deeper and more troubling story.
Let me ask you, let me follow up, though, on those 4 counts that we do know that they've reached a verdict on. Did the prosecution, in your opinion, provide enough evidence? I mean, was that the stronger of the two cases if we were to split the prostitution and the racketeering up?
Yes, because it's simpler, right? People can get their heads around somebody using force.
You called the prostitute, you flew the prostitute, that kind of thing.
And they have the video.
And you paid the prostitute,
They've seen the video of Cassie on tape being beaten. He's been apologetic for that. He can't get around that video, right? So they already have that. Even if they don't have a video as it relates to Jane, they've seen that course of conduct as it relates to it. I think they can get their heads around that in an easier way than a criminal enterprise. When people think about a criminal enterprise, they think about the mob, right? They think about people running drugs and guns. This is not that.
For profit.
For profit. This is not that. This is for his personal use. Now, there's no question that the prosecutors have said he had all these people under him working desperately to try to, prop him up and protect him, and there's money involved and drugs involved. But it's not what people typically think of.
It's a great point, right? What was the motive here, and why would he have that RICO enterprise? I want to go back to Chloe because we still have her outside the courthouse. Chloe, take us back into that courtroom again, because we know there was also some sort of movements from the attorneys when the jury came back as well. Talk to us about how his legal team was feeling and looking.
I mean, Tom, when I was inside, I looked at the clock. It was about 4:10. I actually shared an elevator with Mark Agnifilo, the lead attorney, who knew what I didn't know was that there was another jury note. Many people thought that, hey, it's just the jury saying it's time to go home. But it was so tense. I mean, you had Brian Steele at one point just really passionately talking with his hands. You had Xavier Donaldson leaning over the front of the table. At one point, I thought maybe Combs was even crying. I mean, that is how intense the situation was. When those jurors, they came back into the room, they were stoic. I've had my eyes on so many of them. And, listen, it's very hard to say what's going to happen with the sex trafficking on Cassie Ventura and Jane. Because while sitting in there and looking in these jurors' faces, although I know you can't always read the tea leaves, it's very clear that several of those jurors, they were not convinced during the prosecution's testimony from some of those 34 witnesses. Also, the closing arguments, some rolling their eyes, some looking very exasperated. At times, remember, we talked about, Tom, some jurors even falling asleep. So, again, tomorrow they will go back in there and deliberate. But Combs looking very depressed as he turned around and looked at his family. Normally he's doing those prayer signs, maybe even a heart symbol. Not today.
Kristen, what do you think the lawyers are reading that, and Sean Diddy Combs is reading as well? What tea leaves do you think they're reading?
I think they're thinking that there is a conviction, at least to counts 2 and 3, or 4 and 5, related to Cassie and related to
Why?
Jane.
Because it came back so fast, or just...
Because I don't see how they are thinking about RICO if, in fact, he didn't commit those sex trafficking crimes or the transportation for the purpose of prostitution crimes. Those standalone crimes are simpler. They're easier. Did he? And then when you have the video, look at all of the mountain of evidence. They had to have at least found that there was some type of sex trafficking charge. Those are easy. Those are standard. Those are simpler crimes. But the complexity of the RICO charge, the enterprise, that's where it becomes sticky. And yes, I think the prosecution had sufficient credible evidence to bring the charge. But is it enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, to convince every single juror? That's the sticky part.
Laura, 2 questions. One, Walker viewers quickly through if he does beat the RICO charge, what kind of prison time could he still face if he is convicted on the other ones? And two, how does the July 4th holiday play into this? Because I know there's a lot of back and forth about that.
If he is convicted on 2 through 5, he is facing 15 to life. It is
15 to life.
It is not. It is not nothing, right?
Yeah.
So even though we think about RICO being something so significant, the 15 to life, because he's using force and fraud and coercion, it's serious. Okay. The July 4th holiday is a specter here because usually jurors are not inclined to come back after a holiday, so they don't want to come back on Monday. And so there's this sort of looming pressure to try to see, can they get this done before or not? They decided today they're not even going to bring it up today. They want to see how tomorrow plays out.
So tomorrow's going to be a big day.
Tomorrow's going to be an enormous day because if they are still hung at the end of tomorrow on count 1, then the question is, when we were talking about this in the break, does the judge say, no, I need you to keep going, or does the judge say, I think we've done all we can do on
And that could be till next Tuesday. Okay. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Laura, Kristen, great. Chloe, thank you as well. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.